Aya is absolutely awesome. She was here last year and presented. And her presentation last year, I think I probably watched on video about 10 times since. She had a lot of great information in there, stuff that we even use to refine our product. So I'm excited for another discussion like that. And so I guess without further ado, bring on Melkeya.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much. So, how was lunch? It's good, very good, wasn't it? So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me back. And I added a little bit of animation for interest here, so hopefully it won't be a distractor, but I decided to mess with the new technology, so you have to tell me what you think about it. So around mid-year last year, we decided to start a process on rebranding talent acquisition at Waste Management, both externally and internally. And so you heard over the last couple of days, people mention this war on talent. Well, we were not exempt from that, and we recognized that for us at Waste Management, there was really no end in sight as it relates to this war on talent. And so we knew that we were going to have to grow our own talent in order to get what we needed in terms of bench strength. And so in order to do that, we had to be able to let folks know who Waste Management is and why we should be regarded as an employer of choice and why somebody would want to join Waste Management and build a lifelong career with us. And so the new external brand that we developed, we wanted it to tell a story around who we are as an organization, help folks understand that we are so dynamic. We are so much more than just a trash company. And we wanted to share our people and the pride that they have in the work that they do every day and the diversity that exists in the organization. And so we partnered with a third-party firm who helped us to put together this brand. So what I'm going to share with you before we get into the discussion is one of the videos that they developed, which is part of our new talent acquisition brand. And I think it tells a really good story about who we are as an organization. So I'll share that with you now. All right, so if you are unfamiliar with Waste Management, we are actually the nation's leader in comprehensive waste management and environmental services. And we are headquartered in Houston, Texas. We operate in 48 states, also in Canada and in Indore, India. And we have about 21 million customers, over 40,000 employees, and we hire about 10,000 people every single year. And we are hiring, just in case you know somebody. So when we thought about the need to refresh the external brand, there was really 5 things that were top of mind for us that really drove the sense of urgency around this. Primarily, we were dealing with very sparse talent pools, and it was in our skilled labor positions. So we hire a lot. So of the 10,000 hires we make a year, approximately 6,500 of those are drivers and technicians, so CDL drivers and diesel technicians. And what we were finding is that waste is not necessarily the sexiest industry, and I don't know too many people who actually grow up thinking, I want to work for a trash company. And so we're competing with a lot of other employers for this talent. And we determined that in order to get the talent that we need to continue to run our operations and grow our organization, we were going to have to grow our own talent. And so we developed a lot of programs centered on going after folks who may not have ordinarily thought about getting their CDL license, may not have thought about getting trained as a diesel tech, and probably are uncertain about what it is exactly they want to do. And we wanted to approach that audience and say, waste management has an opportunity for you to earn while you learn and grow a career. And so now that we established those programs, we had to let everybody know that they were available. The other thing is, in our new brand, we wanted to also really drive home the message that we've got a lot of longevity in our organization. I've been with the organization 11 years. We've got many other people who have been with the organization 20, 25 plus years. So it's absolutely a place where you can come and grow a career. It's not some place that you kind of just make a pit stop, you find a job, and then you move on to something better. There's just so many opportunities at Waste Management, and we needed to make sure that folks were well aware of that. The other thing is, if we were going to really grow our organization, we had to be able to attract top talent to our business. And it's very difficult to do so when you're a trash company, because there's so many fun, new, hip, trendy companies out there. If you are top of your game, you're not necessarily eyeing Waste Management as where you want to go and build your career. And so we had to overcome the negative stereotypes that were associated with our business, help people to really understand that it's not just waste. I mean, we are a $13 billion organization. We are a Fortune 250 organization. There's a lot going on here, and let me tell you why you want to be a part of that. So this was our old brand. And the old brand tagline was real jobs, real green. I think it was 3 attractive people. I don't know if they ever worked for Waste Management, but they look very clean and very nice. And I don't think that it's a real depiction of what it is we do. I've never gone out to the field and seen anybody that clean. They're happy, but they're not that clean. And this really played off of our environmental focus. And when this brand was developed in 2008, I think it served its purpose quite well. But now we're in a very different recruiting climate, and we have to be a bit more forward and assertive around who it is we're trying to attract to the organization. So we've got to just sell ourselves a little bit differently. So this was fine, but it just wasn't real. This is real. This is what we do. It's trash. So this is not waste, but it's a $14 billion national business. And so in putting this new brand together, what we're trying to evoke in people is to say, wow, I didn't know that. I've heard of this company, but I just really had no idea as to the scale, the size, and the scope of the business that they do. Now that I understand that they are a multi-billion-dollar business, I'm intrigued. I want to learn more about them. So hopefully that's what this new brand will evoke in people as they see these images. So this is just one of several images that are part of our new external talent brand. So the process. As I mentioned, we partnered with an external branding firm. We also partnered with our internal communications team to help build out a talent strategy that aligned, and a talent brand that aligned with our overall organizational brand. And so the first step in the process is, after I sat down with the firm and I made clear to them what I wanted the objectives of the new brand to be, which were, I wanted to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. I wanted to have something that was going to be attractive to millennials. I wanted something that was going to trend at some point, that was going to be fun, hip, different, and unexpected from Waste Management. So from what Waste Management has historically done. And so once I made that clear, the firm that we partnered with walked us through this 4-stage process. And the first stage was for them to really understand waste management. So getting out in the field, talking to our employees, finding out what it is we do as a business, who do we regard as being top performers and why. Also, in addition to doing some internal conversations with our existing employees, they also talk to some folks outside of our organization to find out what is it that they think about waste management today. Do they know who we are? What's our reputation out on the street? So that was part of the discovery process. Then we moved into the strategy process, which was taking all of that information that was learned in the discovery phase and determining what our approach was going to be. And so what we decided we needed to do is have a very segmented branding approach, meaning that we wanted one message for our drivers and technicians, and we wanted something that was going to appeal to them. We needed to have a different message that was going to appeal to our sales organization, to our college recruiting program, and so on and so forth. And so the strategy process was just about building those segmented talent brands. Then we moved into activation, and right now, as I mentioned, we started this process mid-year last year. So this is over a 1-year process. So we are currently between the activation and the performance stage right now. So in the activation stage, that's when we start to erase all of the green, real jobs, real green tagline and replace it with, this is not trash, but this is something far more dynamic than that. So that is now integrated into our career site. It's now integrated into our waste management YouTube channel. It's on all of our social media platforms, and it is continuing to be integrated into everything that we do. So as a next step, we're looking to see if it's even possible to have it plastered on the side of our trucks. I mean, what greater advertisement is that? That's the best billboard we have. And so we want to make sure we're leveraging all of our assets to make folks aware of who we are. And then performance. So now that we've invested all of this time and all of this money into rebranding talent acquisition, are we now getting what it is we set out to get, which is, are we attracting the talent that we want to attract to the organization? What are folks saying about us on Glassdoor? Are we hiring folks? Are we hiring top talent? Where are they coming from? And then once they get on board, how are they performing for us? So these are really these odometers are really the things that we're measuring as a part of the brand. So really starting with awareness. You know, do we have more people following us? Do we have more people signing up for our talent communities as a result of this new branding? From an engagement standpoint, are we seeing more likes, more follows, more retweets? From a perception standpoint, we do a lot of surveys, both internally and externally. So what are folks saying about us? What are our own folks saying about us? What are candidates saying about us? We do a lot of new hire surveys. We also do candidate experience surveys. So even if you weren't hired and selected for a position, what was your experience like, and how do you feel about us? Then from perception, we obviously want to ensure that we've got conversions. So through all of this, are we hiring people? Are we making hires as a result of this? And again, once those hires are brought on board, are they performing? How are they? Are they being promoted? Are they performing and yielding results in their jobs? So these are the 5 metrics that will help us to determine the efficacy of our new brand. So if we were going to spend time and energy and resources in rebranding ourselves externally, we also needed to make sure that we had a solid talent acquisition team internally. And so what we did at the start of this year is we began the process of rebranding our recruiters to talent advisors. And so the question always is that a matter of semantics? If you call me a butterfly, am I now suddenly able to take flight? No. And so there's actually a behavior change that has to occur. There's actually a different skill set that's required. And an interesting, I don't know if I can call it a statistic because I've only read it in one place, but I did read that only 19% of recruiters are actually qualified to be talent advisors. That's a very scary data point. And I'm just hoping that that 19% all exists at Waste Management. But the difference and the expectation that we're really driving for is, and we've all said it and we've all heard it, is that recruiters tend to be very transactional, very reactive. And so no longer is post and pray or see a need, fill a need acceptable. That's just not what the business needs. So we want to make sure that we are coming to the table armed with information. We have a very deep and intimate understanding of the company that we support, of the functions that we support. We are armed with external data, and we're able to have a different kind of discussion with managers. And there's an agreement, there's a partnership. And so while we are out there proactively sourcing talent, we also want our hiring managers to be receptive to the idea of what I call just being available to interview all the time. In the absence of a requisition, are you willing to talk to a candidate that I've just came across that I think has the skill sets that we need in order to advance the ball in our organization, and just always being available to talk to talent. The other thing is, when you have a deep understanding of the organization that you support, sometimes you're able to offer up suggestions around talent and skill sets that the business is just not thinking about. So for example, if you know that they are headed in a particular strategic direction and they're going to need an engineer in order to drive a particular strategy forward, does the skill set of the engineer that they need, is it necessarily what we hired in an engineer last year? And so if you are embedded in the business, if you're knowledgeable of the business, then you're able to say, I think there's a different skill set, and I know exactly where to go find that person. They're doing this at this organization. They're successful. Let's go get them. The other opportunity area for us in moving from recruiters to talent advisors is that we didn't always do a good job of networking. And so our recruiters just didn't really have a strong network. They would wait for a position to be posted, and they would hope that somebody would respond to that job posting, and hopefully it would be somebody good. But now our talent advisors are expected to always be cultivating relationships. They always have to be out there. If they're in the office, they're behind a desk, then yeah, there's a lot of that through technology that can be done, but I really want them to be where the talent is. You need to know where these folks work. You need to always be sourcing. You need to be researching. You need to be creating relationships with these folks. And so in order to get what we needed from a behavioral change and getting our folks to move from being recruiters to talent advisors, there's really 4 behaviors that we focus on. And I'm big on acronyms. And so we came up with RISE, and it's 4 very simple ingredients. The first one is relationship building. And so, as I just mentioned, it's not just the relationships with your internal hiring managers, but it's the relationships that you need to have with your external candidates or potential candidates. So, where are you networking? With whom are you networking? How are you keeping people interested? And are you conducting those or having managers participate in those exploratory interviews? Influencing. So are you using external market data to help influence hiring decisions? So do you have that real seat at the table? Are you regarded as a talent partner, meaning that you're offering me insight, intel about the hiring landscape that I don't have, and that's going to help me bring aboard the talent that I need in order to accomplish what it is I need to accomplish in my particular function. Strategic thinking. So this is big, particularly when you talk about the differences between a recruiter and a talent advisor. So there are a lot of things, particularly in our business, that are very predictive. And so it really serves no one well to kind of wait for a requisition to open or wait for a need to present itself. There's a lot of things that we can plan for and be out in front of. So for example, we've got some high volume, fast-paced positions that we recruit for all the time. So we know that there are seasonal highs and there are seasonal lows. There's no reason why you can't be out in front of that. But even for our exempt level hires, there is an opportunity for us to be out in front of those requests as well. So for example, you know that we always hire engineers. You know that we always hire IT professionals. Where do those folks reside? Where do they work? And how do we get connected with them? And then execution. So we're always focused on building talent strategies. And the talent strategies are done in partnership with the HR business partner and with the operational leaders in talent acquisition. And so now that you've built these strategies based on what you understand the business's direction to be, are you executing on those strategies, and are you doing so effectively and consistently? And in order to drive the behavior that you need to see, you've got to make sure that you're aligning your compensation with the performance that you need. And so what we had for our then recruiters, now talent advisors, was an annual bonus program. And what I found with those annual bonus payouts, they were comprised of a combination between organizational performance and individual performance. But I didn't see a whole lot of differentiation in the payouts between those that were regarded as really high-performing talent advisors versus those that were maybe not as performing at as high of a rate or level. And so we moved from the annual bonus program to a quarterly bonus program, which allows us to do a number of things. Allows us to more frequently recognize and reward those talent advisors that are really performing at the level that we need to see them perform, but then also allows us, conversely, to have conversations with those that may not be performing at the level that we need to see, to coach, guide, redirect, and get them back on course so that they have an opportunity over the balance of the year to make those improvements. And so we wanted to keep this very simple, and so we are basing their performance off of 3 very simple metrics, and they are diversity recruitment and hires. It is time to offer, not time to fill. And then the other is, so there's diversity, time to offer, strategy development, and execution, the biggest one. And so we're just focused on those 3 metrics. And so what happens is they're rated against those metrics, and then they're stack ranked against each other. And what it does is, in the annual bonus program, they were typically being paid out at about 100, sometimes 105%. But under this program, it really allows us to differentiate. And so they're seeing a more generous bonus payout. I won't say what it is because they haven't received their first payout, but it's better than what it had been in the past. And so again, it really is a game changer in terms of being able to differentiate top performers from the rest of the team. And so I will say that, in summary, having a strong internal brand and external brand really does yield tangible results for the organization. It puts you in a position to be able to attract top talent to the organization. It reduces your cost per hire. It changes the conversation. Because one of my pet peeves had been when recruiters or talent advisors were working with their hiring managers, there was a lot of conversation around, well, I've got to get this filled because I'm being measured on my time to fill. And if I don't get this filled in 30 days, I'm going to get dinged on my time to fill. And that's not the conversation that we want to be having with our hiring managers, but instead, we want to speak to them in a language that resonates with them, which is, what is the financial impact to the organization if this position is not filled quickly, right? So if I'm not able to fill this position in the next 30 days, what's the potential revenue loss here? What is it that we're going to be losing out on if we don't have this talent in place? So a very different conversation. And it allows us to really foster better relationships between the talent advisor and the hiring manager, because now there's a level of credibility that exists there. So now you're no longer my order taker, but now you're my business partner. You're providing me with data, you're providing me with intel, you're bringing me talent before I even asked you for this talent. We're having these exploratory discussions, and most importantly, we're not going after people who are necessarily on the unemployment line. We're going after passive job seekers. And so what we find is, if you're identifying talent that's currently employed somewhere else, they're doing well, If they make a conscious decision to leave where they're working to come join our organization, chances are they've thought about that and they're going to stay, which absolutely helps to improve our retention. So I'm very interested in hearing, I know that some of you, this is because this whole notion of talent advisors versus recruiters is not a new idea. We've been talking about it for a long time in the talent acquisition space. But I've learned that there are not many people who have fully made this journey. So I'm very interested in hearing from those of you that are further along in this process. And what challenges and hurdles have you all encountered in this? And how do you help the business to understand the value of this? How do you help them to understand that this is just not a matter of semantics, but it does have a more significant, meatier impact to the business? So with that, I'll open it up to questions. But again, I want to hear from you, ideas, tips, life hacks. So I'm open for questions.
Where's Tom? I know he's got something to say about this.
I have 7, but I won't ask them.
By the way, this is awesome. You did a great job, and it's interesting that regardless of industry, we're all facing the same challenges in TA. It really is. It transcends industry and where we are, and everybody's at a different point in the journey. Mm-hmm. So that I commend you for the great work you've done. I did have a question regarding. You said that strategy development and execution is one of the largest pieces of the way that you rate your talent advisors, right?
Yes.
Talent partners. How do you do that? How do you rate strategy development and execution?
Absolutely. So the first piece of it is very fundamental, which is, did you actually develop the strategy? So it's very action oriented. And so what we expect from our talent advisors is every quarter, at the beginning of every quarter, they have a strategy meeting, and they're bringing in the functional leaders, and they're bringing in the HR director, and they're sitting down talking about what is it that this particular function plans to do over the next quarter. What do we need in terms of talent resources in order to make that happen? Where do we find it? And then, do they actually execute on that? Since this is new, the next evolution of this is, because right now we're measuring, did they do it? The next evolution of this is, yes. It really is a yes or no, but the next evolution of this is, did you do it and what results did it yield? And so we're too early into the process to get to the results that it yielded, and so we're really focused on, did you get it done?
That's awesome. And then the second question, then I'll be done. You mentioned quality of hire, I think,
Yes.
as part of your presentation. How do you measure quality of hire? Like, what steps do you take to understand if the person that was hired by the talent advisor is the right person over time, and then you can tie it back to that person?
Absolutely. So I mentioned quality of hire as one of the tangible outcomes of having a strong internal and external brand and having a strong internal talent acquisition team. And quality of hire for us is measured by how that person is performing in the role in which they were hired, and are they advancing? So are they being promoted? Are they part of our succession planning process?
So you actually capture that data and then are able to tie it back to the recruiter?
Yes, we do. So we capture it in our talent management process, and then we're able to tie it back to the recruiter.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes. You want to wait until you get the mic.
Hi, Rashmi again from Quincy. How do you bring that back to, from sort of where you started, especially, what are those parameters that actually dictates how you measure the end result? Like to the earlier example of, measuring quality of hire. Mm-hmm. Like there's a certain expectation with the recruiters or the talent advisors now, as you sort of transition them. How do you bring that data that you've captured at a later time in terms of quality of hire back to the recruiter, and what are those qualities that you look for? Is it longevity? Is it progression, promotion? What are those sort of parameters that gets mapped back to the talent advisor? Yeah,
so again, it's all of those things. So it is longevity, it's performance in the job. So how are they being rated during the performance evaluation period? Is this somebody who's regarded as a mid-range performer, or is this somebody who's regarded as a high performer? And are they progressing? So now that they've been with the organization for a while, is there a plan in place to advance them to another role or advance them to the next level? So those are the measures that we look at in terms of quality of hire. And we've learned that the quality of hire tends to be greater when we're hiring passive job seekers as opposed to non-passive job seekers.
And following up to that, as part of sort of the larger strategy development that the talent advisors do you also incorporate sort of progression or promotion from within as part of that strategy planning, saying, well, X amount comes from internal versus what you go hire externally as part of your strategy development?
No, and the reason for that is because the internal promotion opportunity may not always be there, or at least not in a rapid pace for all positions. So our talent advisors are sort of bifurcated into two groups. We have what are called talent advisor professionals, and they do our full end-to-end exempt level or salaried level hires. And then we have talent advisors operations. And so for a talent advisor operation, for example, they're hiring primarily drivers, technicians, et cetera. And so there's not the same level or opportunity for progression in those roles than it is for some of the salaried level roles. And so it would be kind of imbalanced to measure that, because it would be difficult to stack rank them against each other for the purposes of the bonus payouts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Can you kind of walk me through some of the struggles potentially with your leadership team as you switch these people into more of an advisor? Because we've tried some of that, and there's a lot of pushback. I think a lot of it is people don't really understand how much HR people really know. So can you kind of walk us through some of your struggles and how you resolve some of that?
Absolutely, great question. And so I thought about that myself. I said, we're spending an awful lot of time really growing, developing, educating our talent advisors on how best to partner with the business. But the business has never seen this before. Like, this is new. You want to have a conversation with me? You want to do something before I actually have a need? I'm not quite sure what to do with that. And so as part of this branding process, we've also asked the firm that we worked with to help us put together some sort of internal learning videos to educate our managers on what it is to truly have a talent partner and how to partner with that individual. And so we're spending a lot of time doing road shows at this point, talking to, and I'm very much a part of that, talking to hiring managers about the value of working with talent acquisition in this way, helping to understand the what's in it for them. But I find that, through visual aids and quick learning snippets on our internal website is probably going to be the best way to help them to understand, how do I work with my talent partner?
You talked about time to fill as time to offer as one of your metrics. Do you have that broken down by different groups of candidates or different groups of employees, and what do those look like for your group?
Yeah, so two things I would say about time to offer. So initially, let me start with this. So initially, we used to measure time to fill. And we moved away from time to fill because there was so much that happened after the offer process that was out of the control of the talent advisor. So now we're focused on time to offer. And as I explained previously, our talent advisors are in two separate functions. So we have professionals and we have operations. And so it depends on the function that you support that drives what your time to offer target should be. And so for some of our more difficult, more complex roles, we have a longer time to offer. For sales, because there are other things involved in that hiring process, there's a longer time to offer. For our frontline positions like our drivers, our techs, we have a shorter time to offer because we have an RPO that plays a part in the process. We're always hiring for these roles, so there should always be a pipeline. We've got these grow your own programs, so that creates now another pipeline for us. And so the window to be able to identify those folks and get them on board is a little bit shorter than what our target is for some of our exempt professional roles.
Would you be comfortable sharing the numbers?
So they're different. So for our high volume positions, it's 23 days. For our IT positions, it is, I think, 35 days. For our sales positions, I think it's also about 35 days. I don't think that we have anything that's over 35 days. And 23 is our lowest. Yeah.
Even execs?
What's that? Executives? Executives as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So just sharing a little bit of my experience. For over a decade, I focused on time to offer, right? And that was, I agree that if you're looking at the actuals, that is the best metric. In my last year and a half, it's actually, the conversation has changed entirely, and it's interesting, and it's more about rec aging. So it's about all the open recs,
Right.
not about the closed recs. Because the moment you have a list of closed recs, say it's 200, 300, and you pick an average, you pick a median, you're going to have your recs that are 1 day old and recs that are 300 days old, and they'll all average out. You get a middle number, and then suddenly it's like, okay, our average in this, average in that.
Right.
The interesting thing is that time, the rec aging is the one that it feels like you can put more pressure on. Because the moment you're in a big meeting, big staff meeting, and you have C-level executives, and then those 3 recs that are 200 days each old, and you're pointing at them and you say, here are the steps, and you proactively go in, here are the steps we've done, here's what's going on, and not pointing fingers, but he's right over there. That puts a little pressure on him. So have you thought about kind of the aging separate from the time to offer, or is that down the road, or what's your plan for
Yeah,
that?
so if I understand your question, so rec aging is a huge focus of ours, and we try not to say that it doesn't get to a point sometimes where they have been open for 200 days, but we try not to get there. And so we have an escalation process. If our target is to extend an offer to someone within 23 days, let's say, and we're not seeing the amount of movement and activity that we need to see, then we're having an escalation conversation very early on to say, what is it that we need to be doing differently here? So is our comp not where it needs to be? Is this a not so desirable area? Are we sourcing in the right geography? Are we sourcing for the right talent, et cetera? And so typically, if we've gotten to a point where a rec is aged 200 days, there is a mutual understanding as to why that is. Yeah, and that's something that was an issue previously, but through constant conversation, it's no longer an issue. Not saying that we don't have old recs, but the reasons for that and the feeling behind it is no longer an issue, because we talked about this, and we probably talked about it 150 days ago. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, Olga Mansoni, TC Transcontinental Packaging. Just a question: what did employees say about the rebranding, and as a result, did you see an increase in employee referrals?
Good question. So the employees, the general employees, or the talent advisors themselves, what did they say? The general employees. The general employees. I don't know that it's been felt yet by the general employees. And so there has been no response, because they are so far removed, unless they're part of the hiring and interview process, they're so far removed from the talent advisors and what they do on a day-to-day basis, they wouldn't be impacted in any way. The talent advisors themselves, though, and how they reacted to it was very different. It was very interesting, because they didn't know if this was just a matter of semantics. Are you just calling us something different because this is what the trend is in talent acquisition? Or do you actually expect something different from me in terms of performance? So there was some concern with respect to, do I have the skill sets to do what it is you're asking me to do? Do we have the resources to be able to go out and source talent the way you need us to source talent? And so we had sort of a focus group discussion with some of our top talent advisors to get their thoughts and concerns around what this change really means. And what that manifested in is what we call certified to serve. And so we've had this certified to serve program in place for a while for all recruiters, but now we have revived the certified to serve with learning components that are centered on how do you become an effective talent advisor versus just being a good recruiter. And so all of the concerns that they had about their ability to perform in that role are now part of our talent advisor development program. And then there was a second part of your question I don't know that I answered.
Sorry, I focused a little bit on the branding itself and the internal branding, and then asking if you saw, as a result, increased employee referrals to the company.
I can't say, I mean, it's still very early on. So the transition from recruiter to talent advisor is something that we embarked on early this year. Employer referrals have always been a major source of hire for us. And so I think it's a little early to say that I've seen an increase in that. So it's something that we'll certainly keep an eye on. But I don't know that I've seen a surge, at least not anything that's really noticeable to me at this point.
Yeah, just wanted to know, what's the name of the agency that you use to sort of do the branding exercise?
So we use Cielo, who is an RPO. So we have 2 RPOs now. And when we brought Cielo into the fold to help us with what we refer to as the southern tier of our business, they shared with us that they had a marketing and branding arm. And the pedigree of the folks that they had working in that talent, in that marketing and branding arm, came from some really reputable advertising companies. And so we were excited to be able to use that part of their business. So it was Cielo. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you. I really did enjoy your presentation with some great information. Can you share more with us about your Talent Advisor Development Program? What's included in that?
Absolutely. So it is in the process of being developed. So some components are already in place and some components are being developed. But it is really a matter of, we call it certified to serve. And so we identify the competencies that a talent advisor or then recruiter would need in order to be successful in our organization. And we take them through a series of development components before they are even allowed to touch a requisition. Right? And so some of the stuff is very fundamental, very process related, compliance related, and then others is really around that RISE acronym that I shared with you. So relationship building, influence, strategic thinking, execution, and what we are expecting from them in those 4 areas. And so the certified to serve then becomes sort of an ongoing training program, because there's no way now that we can expect them to demonstrate all of those things before we say, now you can touch a requisition. So there's some fundamental things that happen up front that kind of open the door for them to begin real work with us. And then there's ongoing training and development that happens on a quarterly basis just to ensure that we are getting from them the performance and the behavior that we need. And we've also thought about bringing in some external trainers, because we have an annual training or annual meeting that we do with our talent advisors. And so we wanted to bring some folks in from the outside to also walk them through what that process looks like. Because what I found is, and I'm sure all of you have experienced this, is that you'll try to drive a certain initiative in your organization, and you'll get a lot of nodding heads and, yeah, that sounds good. But when somebody else comes in and says the same exact thing that you said, they're like, that's outstanding. That's great. Well, I don't know why we didn't think of that. And so I've decided that we'll probably benefit greatly from having somebody come in to say all the stuff I've been saying. Yeah. Exactly.
Great, anyone else? Okay, great, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.